everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about distress tolerance. Distress tolerance is really helpful. I have heard other therapists talk about how so many Americans in particular have gotten really comfortable and can't handle big emotions. And it's important to be able to handle big emotions because we're going to get them sometimes. You could think about generalized anxiety disorder, which is basically a constant worrying sort of issue about regular everyday activities, as a fear of being overwhelmed by future emotions, future big emotions. Or you could think about social anxiety as a fear of not handling rejection from others. Or you could think about OCD as a fear of whatever the obsession is as coming true. So we've got to be able to handle these big emotions. If we didn't have these fears of handling the big emotions, we wouldn't be so ripe for getting some of these disorders. So I was excited to learn how ERP, or exposure response prevention theory in counseling, can be used not only for OCD, it's the gold standard for OCD, but also for some of these other kind of anxiety disorders. And let me explain to you how ERP works, and then a biblical component that I was thinking about and wanting to share with you. So ERP is exposure response prevention. And it basically looks at how the brain works. And it says, when we look around our environment and we take in from our senses all this sensory information, what we're seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, touching, feeling, it runs up our spine or wherever it's coming from. It hits the amygdala first. The amygdala is a center of our brain that's about the size of an almond. And it is responsible, along with some other parts of our brain, for kind of that fight, flight, or freeze response. If it thinks something is dangerous, it's going to dump a bunch of chemicals in our body like serotonin, adrenaline, and cortisol, and tell us danger, danger, and give you all that like, oh my gosh, this isn't safe, something's wrong feeling. This is going to happen before it hits the prefrontal cortex towards the front of our brain. The prefrontal cortex is our logic and executive functioning center of the brain. So you probably understand what's happening now. When you get into a situation, it goes right to the amygdala first and tells us that something's dangerous, and our logic doesn't even check in for a little bit. And if it's super anxiety provoking, it's really hard for our logic to get online. It's flooded. It can take about 15, 20 minutes for it to deflood, so to speak. So this is important because if we are getting these danger signals and things aren't actually dangerous, then we have kind of a glitchy amygdala, right? And this can happen. Maybe you've heard about like the stereotypical PTSD veteran comes back and hears a bang, but they're in the parking lot of Safeway and it's just a car making a loud noise, but their amygdala gets hit first and says, danger, danger, and they hit the ground, right? As if they're back in the war. Well, their prefrontal cortex eventually checks in and is like, no, that was not a shot. I'm in Safeway and, a safe town. But that's why they hit the floor first. It went to the amygdala first. So the amygdala was glitchy in that case, right? Because they were actually safe. But it interpreted as danger, kind of like a fire alarm that goes off when you burn dinner, but the house isn't burning down. You don't need to call the fire department. So what do we do as humans when we have all this anxiety and the amygdala just dumped all these chemicals on us and tells us danger? Well, obviously, we're going to try to lower the anxiety, right? We're going to address it. This does not feel comfortable. We do not want to be feeling danger, like we're in danger. So we're going to do something that in OCD might be called the compulsion. In anxiety might be called the safety behavior, but it's really anything that we're doing to lower our anxiety about this potentially feels like it's dangerous situation. So a lot of common safety behaviors or compulsions are checking, reassurance seeking, Googling, reassuring yourself. Worrying could be a safety behavior. It feels like if I can figure it out, if I can think through it and process it and fix it, I'm just going to ruminate on it and actually get nowhere, but it feels like I'm doing something, and so that's lowering my anxiety a little bit, because what if I don't worry about it? So what what that actually does, those safety behaviors or those compulsions, reinforce then to the amygdala that it really is dangerous. I actually do have to do something about it because, look, I'm doing something about it. And so that means I can't handle it if I don't do anything about it. And so the more you kind of complete that circuit and reinforce the amygdala that is dangerous by doing something about it to lower the anxiety, the more the amygdala is going to be even more sensitive and think more things are dangerous and really go off. And so what ERP says is cut out the safety behaviors or the compulsions so that you learn after a period of time with a pattern that you can handle it. And a nuance to this really in doing this is to remember why you're doing it. Remember your values. I don't want to be controlled by my compulsions anymore and take up that much time, or I don't want to live with anxiety anymore and teach my brain to be anxious about everything, which is kind of, anti-biblical. I want to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make my request to God. So it's good to remember your values for why you're doing it, because it's stinking hard to live in that anxiety with the amygdala fire alarm going off and you doing nothing about it. But I'm saying all this and sharing this, hopefully because if you have struggled with OCD or anxiety, it's giving you a new way to address it. And also because my church has been really focusing on so many of the spiritual disciplines, and one of those is fasting. And fasting is uncomfortable. And even we're in the Lent season right now as I'm filming, and that's uncomfortable if you're participating in that, to restrict your diet in a certain way. So I think that probably most of you would agree, I'm assuming, that we're really used to being comfortable. And if we can learn to be uncomfortable and that we can handle it, we are so much better off living a full life. We are not held by what our flesh desires. We're kind of killing the flesh, right? And so I love the idea of fasting. I just think one of the really great side effects, if you're looking at the ERP model and fasting, is that fasting is building that distress tolerance. It's teaching you, I can handle this and I'm going to be okay. And instead, I'm going to rely on God to help me handle it. And so I just wanted to share that because I just love the idea of how the brain works and how God kind of just, from some of the verses you'll read, it's kind of like just an expectation that we'll fast. And so I love that God just kind of puts that in there as hopefully a rhythm for us to build our distress tolerance with hard emotions and with hard feelings. And then you can handle more things and you feel more confident when you can handle more things. So it increases our confidence, and hopefully it increases our reliance on God, because when we are weak, He is strong. So the weaker you feel, obviously don't be crazy, but when you're feeling weak, just remembering that He is strong and relying on Him really helps us build faith. And I love in Galatians how it talks about the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. So blessings to you guys. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful and encouragement for you to consider fasting. If you're interested, I can post some resources for fasting down below. Take care.